Have you ever been on a flight where everything felt perfectly ordinary, until suddenly, the sky itself became your test of courage? What if, in that moment of chaos, the one person who could save everyone wasn't the captain, the co-pilot, or even a trained crew member, but a woman who hadn't flown a commercial jet in years, one who carried a secret call sign that even the F-22s still remembered? This is that story. And before we take off into this heart-stopping journey, make sure you subscribe to Grow for Justice, where we bring you true-style stories of courage, fate, and redemption. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because courage connects us across every corner of the world. Globe showing Europe, Africa, it was supposed to be a routine flight from Seattle to Anchorage, cruising through calm skies over the Pacific Northwest. The air shimmered gold in the evening light, and the passengers were relaxed. Businessmen flipping through reports, families whispering to sleepy children, a few travelers lost in playlists and paperback novels. But one passenger sat near the emergency exit, quiet and alone, her short auburn hair brushing the collar of her worn leather jacket. Her name on the manifest was Captain Avery Lang, though no one on board knew she used to wear a uniform with wings. Years earlier, Avery had been one of the most skilled pilots in the Air Force. Her call sign, whispered in every squadron she'd ever flown with, was Falcon 1. She had led combat rescue missions, guided squadrons through storms, and once landed a crippled jet with both engines out, a feat few dared to attempt. But after losing her co-pilot and best friend during a classified mission, she walked away from the cockpit for good, and no more skies, no more adrenaline, no more ghosts. Until that day, Flight 732, the flight had been smooth for the first hour. The captain, a cheerful veteran named Martin, chatted easily with his co-pilot, and the cabin crew prepared for dinner service. Avery sipped her coffee, eyes on the window, watching the clouds roll like waves below. IT had taken her months to convince herself to fly again. Not as a pilot, just a passenger. A simple vacation, she told herself. Just breathe. But peace is fragile at 30,000 feet. At T6:47 p.m., the first alarm blared. A mechanical warning light flickered red on the cockpit panel. Hydraulic pressure failure. The pilots worked quickly, voices tight but controlled. Then came the second alarm. Engine 2 losing thrust. The aircraft jolted sharply, a deep metallic groan echoing through the cabin. Passengers gasped. Drinks spilled, and before anyone could react, a voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Avery's instincts roared back to life. She stood, heart pounding, her pilot's brain snapping into focus. Something was wrong, badly wrong. The sound of the engines, the vibration through the floor panels, it wasn't just a mechanical glitch. Then came the unthinkable. The co-pilot's panicked voice. Captain Martin, he's down. He's not breathing. Avery froze. The captain had suffered a sudden cardiac arrest mid-flight. The co-pilot tried to take control, but the hydraulic systems had already failed, and the jet was losing altitude fast. The flight attendants rushed through the aisle, calling for medical help. A few passengers screamed, but Avery moved like lightning. She reached the cockpit, flashed an old, worn military ID she still carried in her wallet, a relic of a past she had buried. "I'm a pilot," she said firmly. "Move." Inside the cockpit, alarms screamed and warning lights painted the panels red. The co-pilot looked at her with shock. "You're military?" he shouted over the chaos. "Was," she replied, sliding into the captain's seat. Her hands gripped the controls like they never forgot. Every switch, every dial, every vibration through the yoke, it all came rushing back. The plane was dropping fast, altitude bleeding away. Throttle at 50. Stability up for line. "We're losing hydraulics," the co-pilot barked. "I know," Avery said, her voice eerily calm. "Switch to manual backup. Trim control to 0.8. Now." He hesitated, then obeyed. The jet shuddered, then leveled slightly. For the first time in 5 terrifying minutes, the nose lifted that Avery's breath steadied. She had flown worse. She could do this. Air traffic control patched through. Flight 732, identify your pilot. Avery pressed the mic button. This is Avery Lang, former USAF captain. Taking command. Static filled the line, then silence. Finally, the controller's voice came back, low, respectful. Copy that, Captain Lang. We're alerting emergency services. Do you require escort? Avery glanced at the radar, her gut twisting. They were over open water with limited altitude, one engine failing, and a crippled hydraulic system. Affirmative, she said. Request military escort and immediate clearance for emergency landing at Elmendorf. Within minutes, radar signatures lit up the screen. 2 F-22 Raptors climbing fast from the north. Down below, passengers sat frozen in their seats. Some prayed. Some whispered. A child's voice broke the silence. Is the lady flying the plane now? The attendant nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, sweetheart. She's flying us home. Back in the cockpit, the F-22s came into view, sleek, metallic guardians streaking across the evening sky. Flight 732, this is Falcon Leader. We're with you, came the radio call. The voice hit Avery like a lightning strike. Falcon Leader. The same call sign she once used. Her throat tightened. Copy, Falcon Leader. Feels good to see Raptors again. The pilot on the other end paused, his tone shifting. Wait, Falcon 1? Is that you? The co-pilot stared at her in disbelief. They know you. Avery didn't answer. She just smiled faintly, eyes glistening. Keep formation, she said into the radio. Let's bring this bird home. The F-22s flanked her on both sides, their lights gleaming like stars against the darkening sky. Through the cockpit window, one of the pilots looked directly at her and gave a subtle wing salute, the kind reserved for legends. Then came his whisper over the radio, quiet, reverent. Falcon 1. Welcome back. Her heart cracked open. She hadn't heard that name in years. That whisper was everything she had lost. Her squadron, her best friend, her purpose. Tears blurred her vision, but her hands never left the controls. She was home again. Not on the ground, but in the sky. Altitude 3,000, the co-pilot called out. Runway in sight. Avery nodded. Gear down. Flaps 20. The runway lights of Elmendorf Air Base glittered below, a narrow strip of salvation. Air traffic control cleared her for an immediate landing. The F-22s peeled off, giving her the airspace. But before they did, they circled once more and tilted their wings in perfect formation, a final salute to the woman who once led the skies they now guarded. Avery guided the aircraft gently through crosswinds, the engine coughing, the landing gear trembling. She whispered a prayer, not for herself, but for everyone on board. The jet kissed the runway, wheels screeching, brakes grinding, and then silence. The plane stopped. They were safe. Applause erupted through the cabin. Passengers cried, hugged strangers, and shouted her name. Avery sat frozen, staring at the runway lights, her hands still trembling on the controls. The co-pilot exhaled. You just saved 128 lives. But Avery only smiled softly. No, the sky did. Outside, the F-22s performed one last low pass over the runway, their radios crackling with a final message. Falcon 1, cleared for peace. She looked up, watching them disappear into the clouds. For the first time in years, she felt light again. Hours later, as the passengers were escorted off and reporters swarmed the terminal, Avery slipped quietly out a side door and no cameras. No headlines. Just a woman walking alone under the vast Alaskan sky. Her jacket fluttered in the wind, the same one she'd worn years ago during her final mission. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. We saw what you did. Once a falcon, always a falcon. The skies remember. She smiled, eyes glistening. For some, the sky is just air and clouds. For Avery Lang, it was home, and it always would be. And that's the story of Falcon 1. The woman who came back from silence to save the skies one last time. That if this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button right now on Grow for Justice, because we bring you the stories of courage, redemption, and humanity that the world needs to hear. And tell us in the comments below, where are you watching from? We love seeing our family from around the world sharing the same spirit of strength and justice. This is Grow for Justice. And remember, sometimes the bravest flights begin when you think you've already landed.